The video stuff has been really wonderful for us. Very challenging. It's a medium that we didn't grow up dealing with. You like telling stories. I mean, that's why you get into this. And we like having information and formatting it, and bringing some order to the chaos and telling the story, our way. Video, tremendous challenge for us because, first of all, you have to remember your words are not that important. You have to sort of de-emphasize that a little bit and see things differently. So we've been really blessed with the people we've worked with. Scrapyard Media, they've been great. But we are having a lot of fun, and we're producing content that we're proud of. If you can say that, you're real lucky.
Welcome to Power Boat Talk, the podcast where we talk everything performance boats with your host, Joe Rode.
Welcome to Power Boat Talk. Today I have with me the boys from Speed on the Water, Matt Trulio, Jason Johnson. I've known these guys for a while. We were all Powerboat Magazine employees, veterans. Matt, especially senior editor, I was there for a long time. So, good to have the guys on. Love to talk some history, and thanks for coming on, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Joe. This will be fun.
Yeah, that's very cool, man. I'm so glad. It's very nice of you guys to come on. So I got a really cool present in the mail yesterday, one of the Speed on the Waters. Let's see if I can see this. See it up there? It's one of the few print magazines that still exist. These guys do it once a year. It's a review of their year of editorial that they do on their online magazine, and it's super cool. It's a great book. Put it up on my Instagram with a link to buy it. But that's something that's real new for you guys, and I'd like to talk about that first. Like I say, it's a great print magazine. It's 194 pages, super good photography. So how'd that all come together, and what's it like getting back into print once a year?
If that came straight from the printer, it would have came in a fancy gold, real bubble wrap thing. Everybody this year, it was the first time we used this printer, and they sent these all out, and everybody's like, whoa. I was like, what the heck did I order? Came in this fancy package, but I was very happy with how they were all delivered quality wise and stuff. So go ahead, Matt. Tell them the story behind year in review, how this came about. This was number 9.
I don't know how we came up with it, Jason, but I do know that next year will be our 10th one, right? Wow. So it started in 2015. It was 132 pages, and it was like Jason and I have always been magazine guys, and the fact that the magazine industry sort of just crumbled, the whole market crumbled. We never gotten to do the magazine that we always wanted to do, which would be something that was more graphically focused. Despite that we're writers, we love magazines, and we love the whole art of magazining as much to look through as read, if not more. So, we said, all right, well, we don't want to be in the regular print business because it really didn't seem to be a really great business at that point. So we said, let's try it. Let's see if we can do a 1 year in review magazine and see where it goes. And 132 pages for, I think, a couple years, or at least one. And then we went to 164. And then Jason said, hey man, we can do 196. And it became, quite frankly, our number one revenue producing product of the year. A lot of people had told me over the years that it wouldn't work. It was like, nah, that's a bad idea. And it probably would have been a bad idea, except we do daily news. So when it comes time for us to compile this magazine, we already have most of the historical material that we need. Otherwise, it would be daunting.
My thought, because I get your emails, and if you guys don't, go to speedonthewater.com. These guys put out a newsletter once a week. They are on top of it in the boating industry, especially, your focus, if you guys don't know, their focus is on the larger boats, offshore boats, the bigger manufacturers back east, and they do a great job of it. But yeah, your newsletter, every week you've got all the latest stories and you're on top of it. But when I got it, I was thinking the opposite. I'm like, how the heck did you pare it down? Like, you guys have so much news. It must be a chore to pare it down to 195 pages.
Yeah, like Matt said, we grew it to that length, and it was because of strength of the industry, relationships we built with some of the boat builders, events that have popped up that we started to cover more, or that have requested that we come out or a photographer comes out because they now know we're covering these events on a regular basis. So it did make it, relatively easy to put it into that. Now we could probably grow it from the size that it is. I don't necessarily want to. It's select. It's cool. It's very targeted. But I mean, we have pontoon manufacturers we're working with now that's different than. I mean, back in Powerboat Magazine days, we might have tested one of those boats, but it wasn't necessarily something we're focused on. But 27-foot pontoons with twin 500s on them now, and you can't, as speed on the water, can't neglect that kind of stuff, right? I along with you guys and print magazines we've all been involved with, it was awesome. It was the way people digested their information. It's the way you went to. When I got hired at Powerboat, right, we even got the opportunity to get the job. I went to Barnes & Noble and found one on the stands and dug all through it. And I was like, holy cow, yeah, this sounds awesome. It's right here in Ventura, not far from my house. Perfect. And then little did I know I'd still be involved in this that many years later. At the time, I didn't know if it was a journalism stepping stone to the next magazine that we've all done, Matt's done it. Matt's done the magazine stuff that's kind of how Year in Review became this Year in Pictures, is Matt's obsession with surfing magazines and Surfer's Journal and stuff like that. And at Powerboat, we kicked around the idea of doing a Year in Pictures. We did a calendar that was kind of like our version of doing that, but we never did a full-fledged magazine. So this is it. And people don't throw them away. They hang on to them.
And coming from the hot rod industry, it kind of went through the same morphing where, it got worse. They killed off magazines, paper got thinner, blah, blah. But there's been a couple magazines that have resurrected, and they've kind of done the same thing. They've gone with bigger paper quality, charged more money. And so it's a good business model. But I have to tell you, and I hope my friends aren't listening from the hot rod, yours is like the nicest one, like literally the nicest one I've seen. Like it's pretty impressive. So if you guys haven't got one, buy one. It's absolutely worth it. You might think it's pricey, but it's not. It's worth every nickel. It's very cool.
Put it up against any other magazine like it for quality, style, and actual journalism, grammatics, everything. I mean, there are a couple mistakes. I found one myself, and one was pointed out to me, but you won't find many. So.
Joe, I mean, I was a Surfer's Mag. I don't want to go on about this forever, but I was a Surfer's Journal fan since the moment that magazine came out. You and I both worked for Source Interlink, and I think they eventually went there. Just the art of magazining. Like one beautiful product a year, and it's really weird. If somebody told me when we started doing daily news at Speed on the Water, that a print magazine would be part of our business model and a successful one, I would have gone, no, not really. It's not going to work as a huge component. But it's weird how the daily news that we do makes the annual issue possible.
Conversely, right, when you're in that monthly grind of putting out a magazine, no matter how much you plan, it's still coming down to kind of the last minute. And there's been a lot of times you're like, okay, we've got 7 more pages. What are we going to put in here? So you guys have the opposite, right? You've got a whole year. You've been smart, kind of like what everybody should do in publishing, like work on it every day and bank it every day. You guys kind of do that, so that's cool.
I drag my feet. I should be working on it already.
Yeah, well, I'm not in charge of picking all these photos and doing all these layouts and stuff. It's our workload is very evenly distributed, except in December when Jason just gets crushed like a bug. Yeah. It's pretty bad.
That's for sure.
So you mentioned it's next year will be 10 years of the Year in Review. How long have you guys been doing the online magazine total? I didn't know when it started.
2009, Matt started it. Correct, Matt?
Yeah.
Speed on the Water. Years. He was still freelancing, I guess, as senior editor at Powerboat, working for, I think Greg might have still been there when you started Speed on the Water. Greg and myself and Matt, we were kind of our editorial team with a couple other freelancers, offshore coverage, stuff like that. But yeah, that was it. Matt started the blog. He'd seen Powerboat coming down. We were cutting how much we were paying him. We were cutting the pages. We were doing 8 magazines instead of 12. We even brought the format down to a little smaller standard size, if you will, not the oversized.
Oh yeah.
So Matt did the Speed on the Water thing with a group of boaters, right? Correct, Matt? Other boating
Yeah,
journalists, I should say.
there was a group started by a yachting writer by the name of Kim Cavan, who actually does a lot of mainstream journalism in the animal rights stuff. She's pretty influential in that. Anyway, she started a group called Boater Mouth, and she picked like 5 people in different segments to do blogs for her. And it was pretty cool. We had some good people involved. The problem with Boater Mouth is that it was an aggregated content site itself, and Google doesn't really like that. So that combined with some personal issues on Kim's behalf, at the time, kind of erased Boatermouth from the planet. But we each had our websites, and so I stuck with Speed on the Water, not really knowing what to do. One year, I think my third year in, Paul Ray at Ilmore Marine called me and said, "Hey, I love what you're doing. Would you consider taking advertising?" And I never thought of it because that's not how I think, right?
Spoken like a true editorial guy.
Exactly. Oh, really? How do I get paid again? I don't know. So Paul, I worked with our webmaster, Dave McCrary, who was with me when we started boats.com in 2001. And that helped, he put on, but the real piece that made the whole thing work was actually Jason was like, "Hey, can I work with you?" And I was like the luckiest human being on the planet. I was like, "Are you kidding? If you work for anybody else, I'll have you killed." And he came on board, and we were really we weren't really daily. We were sort of daily. We were like publishing as much as we can daily. And then we just made that commitment to do it every day. And I will have to admit that the first like 3 to 5 years were pretty scary sometimes, because you don't have your industry and your sources conditioned to responding to you at the time in which they need to respond to you, which is they were still thinking for years monthly magazine time, which is a few weeks from now. And now they're like, "Well, when do you want to publish this?" And I'm like, "About 5 minutes." Oh yeah.
Most of them weren't on social media like they are now. The side of these manufacturers, they weren't used to it. At the same time, we were now starting to open up and accept more advertising, go chase after more of it, that kind of stuff too. So that puts the pressure on you to deliver for those advertisers, deliver more eyeballs, deliver the content that they want. But like Matt said, it did start training is the right word, or whatever, but conditioning ourselves and the people that we worked with that this is the way we do it. And now, we'll get a fully documented email from Jeff Johnson at DCB on the boat they're delivering, information about the customers, past boats they own, a Dropbox links with all the detail images. Jeff calls it spoon feeding, and I hope he watches this, but it really does help us with the delivery of, and he values that story going live too, like within the next 24 to 48 hours of when they handed over the keys to this guy.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's just one example, obviously.
Well, and no, it's good. It's, being on the other side of the fence, in manufacturers selling parts and stuff, like, I know that. I would always preach that, and I would try to do my best too. But it's hard to get guys to. It's unbelievable when you're asking guys to spoon feed you. Like, look, you give me this stuff, I'm going to run it, and you still probably don't get as much as you want, because I don't know. It seems like people never kind of find the time of the day to do that, even though it's free advertising. And
it's still, even if you get a press release, if you're doing the job properly, the way it was meant to be done, you get a press release, and that's a jumping off point, right? I would say that less than 2% of our stories on Speed on the Water are press release generated, meaning we're just going out and doing basic reporting, which is what we were kind of trained to do back in the day. And you get into the magazine cycle, and that all slows down quite a bit. Like, I would go to Key West and cover the Key West Worlds, and I wouldn't have a story due for like 6 weeks. So it was really fun. You go to Key West and party, and then make all the phone calls you should have made while you were in Key West, and do all the interviews you should have done down there. But now it's just not like that at all. And I don't think that the public digests. Well, I know the public doesn't digest information anymore that way. They want things now. Event coverage. I say this to Jason all the time. From the time the event ends till the time we print it, it's just rotting. It does not have a shelf life.
Yeah.
It used to have a shelf life when the only way to get niche event coverage was through a magazine like Powerboat or Speedboat or whatever. That used to be the only way to get it. It made sense. You'd have to wait. And if you were a good feature writer, you would write it not so much as a game story because results always existed, but you would write it as a feature about like, what's the story behind the story, that kind of thing. Now there's no tolerance for it online, and that's why one of our imperatives is we want someone to not just see one thing every day new online, multiple things, and on East Coast time as best we can, because we're kind of West Coast based, so we have to accommodate that most of our readers are 1 to 2 time zones away from us.
Gotcha. And obviously, you guys do a handful of events. I don't know how many you guys actually go to. I'm sure you'd always like to go to more, but those have to be just gold mines too when you go. I know like Lake of the Ozarks, for instance, man, you guys get a bunch of interviews. Like it's got to be just a gold mine for you guys.
Jason should speak to that.
Lake of the Ozarks for sure. I mean, you could go there at any point, not any point of the year necessarily, but May through October, and we could go and get several stories based on dealerships, Big Thunder, Performance Boat Center, Friends of Waves and Wheels, whoever you just happen to run into. I'm working on a story that'll go live tomorrow on a new development at Lake of the Ozarks that's performance boater based. That developer from Minnesota is performance boater, realtor from South Florida. This is their plan, and it converges in Lake of the Ozarks. But we go there for shootout week, and you can't even keep up with there's this party or this thing to go to or this event here and that, and you got to pick and choose. But we always organize a photo shoot while we're there because there's so many boats from all over the place there. There'll be DCBs, there'll be cigarettes from Florida, there'll be stuff from Skater in Michigan, all over the place. So the events are great for us, especially for and I've talked to you about this before, Joe, in the past, but meeting our audience, our readers, the people that are, that are, what do you call it, digesting this every day. Those are the guys that are doing the poker runs. Those are the guys that are getting their boats ready for the shootout too. And, might be a guy that I did a story with, or I've interviewed on getting his boat, never met before. And then we happen to meet up at Lake of the Ozarks or Tickfall in Louisiana. It's happened before. I'm going on a tangent here, but there's boaters that I'll go now that they're like, oh, anytime you're in town, come stay at my house. You develop this relationship with people, but that's because you spent those times at events with them, getting to know them or riding on their boat. And you figured all the things you have in common and that you stay in touch because of text messaging, social media, group chats, whatever. It's pretty fun. It's a lot different than the magazine days as far as connecting with our readers or engaging with that audience. We had T-Gon Tech that was, I remember the letters would, I don't want to say pour in, I'd be exaggerating, but we'd get many letters a month, dozens to choose from, to pick from. I don't know if that would happen nowadays or how much the stuff comes into T-Gon Tech or whatever, but we would get letters to the editor. You had people engaging with us and selling classifieds. But other than that, that was about it. We didn't meet the guys that own the boats or bought the next MTI or were on their third MTI. So it's like nowadays, those guys they're in my cell phone and they're a quick text away. I heard you got a new 440. Want to do a story? Sure. When? Good. We're good to go. I didn't even have to go through Randy Sism or Taylor Sism for stuff like that.
Yeah, we were just talking about that the other day, and I never really kind of realized that either, how the connection is much more of a direct connection with customers. And I guess we get so in the magazine, the print world, we get so in tune to, we got to take care of advertisers, got to make sure we're covering advertisers, make sure we don't forget about those guys. I think you're right. I think it almost, and I thought about this after we talked, it was almost like, I don't want to talk to that guy on the street, yeah, but it's so I agree.
It's the best selling thing though, that MTI, DCB, Nortec, anyone can use is their customer doing a story, talking to us about why they bought their boat, what they like about it. And it's testimonial, right? And maybe it's not the best, but it's got to be up there.
Yeah, and to Jason's point, so you're trying to fill a daily news well, and the industry has contracted to a point where, back in the day when we were in magazines, a single boat delivery was not news. A new model was
Right.
news, right? Well, that's
Right.
changed quite a
Yeah.
bit, and especially after 2008, when the industry really hit the skids hard, and production boat building basically in our market ceased to exist. Everything is ordered, paid for, kind of made to order. There's not just lines cranking out boats anymore. So anyway, we had the pressure of saying we've got 365 days of content to fill. Maybe we should start looking at individual delivery stories, and I've taken some crap from a few of our advertisers over in the beginning, but now they sort of see the relevance of it, because we're talking to people, we're getting to know our readers, and these stories become almost aspirational or inspirational. They're like, wow, Greg Harris just took delivery of this new DCB. That's really cool. And it's such a small community that most of these people either know of each other or they directly know each other. So you're working with a very small pool, and it's small enough so you really can cover it at a very granular consumer level. And honest to God, you said earlier, Joe, I hated talking to readers when I was in a magazine. That whole ivory tower thing, that was real. You're a reader. I don't want to talk to you. and it got to the point where, like, boat dealers too. I don't talk to boat dealers. I just talk to manufacturers. If I did that now, oh my goodness, there would be problems, right, Jason?
No, Matt's now asking the dealers, call me. I got to, I need some content. Let's bring it.
Yeah, what a great well for content, right? And probably every guy you talk to that gives you a story, or you talk about his deliveries, like, hey, you got to talk to my buddy or my buddy's buddy, or what, everybody's got it's a tree of people and their experiences and their boats. And so I love that part of what I'm doing, just the storytelling and hearing people's story. I love that. It's really cool. So good for you guys to tap into that. It's definitely working, and definitely the right thing to be doing.
You'll notice it with the video content we've been doing too. It's people focused. It's character driven.
Yeah.
Yeah, the video stuff has been really wonderful for us. Both, I think Jason would agree. It's very challenging. It's a medium that we didn't grow up dealing with. We were, like you said earlier, Joe. You like telling stories. That's why you get into this. I like telling stories. I know Jason loves telling stories. We just do that, and we like having information and formatting it, bringing some order to the chaos, and telling the story, our way. Video, tremendous challenge for us, because first of all, you have to remember your words are not that important. You have to sort of de-emphasize that a little bit and see things differently. And we've been really, I don't want to overuse this word, but we've been really blessed with the people we've worked with at Scrapyard Media. They've been great. We helped them start their company through our business. We funneled them projects, and they helped put us on the video map. And it has not been, honestly. People will ask, and they'll wonder, you guys must be getting rich doing all these videos. No, not really. But we are having a lot of fun, and we're producing content that we're proud of. And really, if you can say that, you're really lucky.
Now, the series you have going now, what's it called? Water Street.
Water Street was a couple ago. That we did that specifically for Mercury Racing for their 50th anniversary. We were doing a series called In the Lead, and that was sort of spotlights. We did 3 seasons of that. We're not shelving it, but the way that it's worked out is that this year's videos, 2024 videos, are going to be a lot more project, personality, and event based. We have a couple of really cool projects we're working on, and they're going to be amazing. And Jason can tell you a little bit.
We did 2 last year that kind of were let's try to do story driven one specifically, which was the MCon team building their Class 1 skater, their Monster Energy boat, And then the Factory Billet team running 184 miles an hour in their outer limits, Lake of the Ozarks shootout. Those were developed stories, sought out sponsors, well planned, a little bit more produced than, we're going to some guy's shop and interview him for 2 days. I mean, Factory Billet was 2.5 days at the shootout, another visit back to Illinois, and a lot of changes in the storyline and all that. MCon was probably 2 or 3 visits to Skater, which Brad and the Scrapyard guys are in Michigan, so that was relatively easy. 3 visits to Lake of the Ozarks. So, and we did interviews starting in Key West in November before that, specifically for that video. So that video that came out in May, I think we kind of sold it in October before Key West, knowing that the monster deal was coming, the Class 1 boat was coming. So we're trying to find more of those. I don't know how much Matt wants to give away, but we got a racing series kind of team by team one that we're working on. And then another cool Outer Limits kind of poker run series boat that will be very interesting to follow. And I think could be that next video that, chasing 500,000 views or whatever that we, some of these in the leads we've done have done great. The character driven ones. Mike Howe from How to Live that one's like 80,000 views, which is pretty cool. But most of them that have done well are like the 30,000, 30,000. And that for us was really cool. I remember the first time that John Kosker one, I think hit like 10,000 views the first year. We were like, yeah, so cool. And then this MCon Skater one was like 10,000 views in the first, few hours. And then it was like, oh, shoot, we got to 100,000. And now we're like, oh, we might get to 500 on this thing, which is pretty sweet, especially when it's really cool. And I don't know how many people do this, but I know several guys that have called me and they just kick back on their couch, fire up their YouTube and watch it on a big screen, not on your computer or on your phone. And it's like Jeff Helmkamp, our photographer, texted a few of us a couple Sundays ago, and he's like, man, I'm so glad I got in the leads to watch on Sundays. He's probably watched them a couple times, but I know he was just sitting on his couch watching these videos, because they're right there on YouTube and very accessible. So it's cool.
Well, and you guys, I mean, it's legit stuff, man. Like I that's how I watch them too on my TV, because obviously everybody can get to YouTube now on TV, which is just cool. But I mean, we watch a lot of videos. I actually have a daughter-in-law who produces documentaries as her living, but I mean, they're legit. Cool. Like it's really good stuff. In fact, I mean, I guess you guys consider yourself kind of like you're kind of the producers, basically. I mean, you guys I guess that's what producers do, right? Put it all together.
We're funding.
I mean, aren't producers the money guys? The guys who go out and chase the money. That's part of what we do.
But I ain't going to say I produce it. I give full credit to Brad, Bobby, Ryan, Brad's guy our best friend that now works at Sensation, for coming up with this. But we pushed them on the quality, because that's what Speed on the Water is about. When you pick up the year in review, it's quality, and we try to make our content online quality. Well reported, try to have as less grammatical mistakes or as least as possible. But Brad and those guys are very detail oriented. His equipment's top notch. He keeps investing in stuff, and you can see it with the work that they do with the Sensation Nation videos. A couple of, they've done some other projects with the Boy and Thunder Poker Run the last couple of years. And Brad cranks out a video, like a 7-8 minute video there. I was last year. He comes in off the helicopter. He's got some of it already put together, pre-shot. He's got an idea where he's cutting everything. But he has a video ready to play at dinner that has cuts of everybody running that day. And it also, feeding into the charitable aspect and trying to drum up the fundraising side of it. But it's impressive. And he's going to do one this year for the Catawba Poker Run in Kentucky, Catawba Cannonball Run. So, yeah, we got a lot of things going on the video side. It's been fun.
Well, it's cool. I hope you guys can keep. Obviously, the big name of the game is getting the financing for it, because it's what you get. The way you guys are doing it, the quality with those number of days and the shooters and the editing. I mean, it's expensive. So hopefully, you continue to get finance to do that stuff, because they're really cool, really good stuff. So.
Matt and I are both easy to reach if any sponsors want to contact us.
I like that. That's
Go ahead,
that's why he's a
Matt.
producer. Seriously, I mean, like what Jason said about Scrapyard, and I can go on and on about those guys, but it comes back to what you were talking about earlier, Joe, and you mentioned how much you like telling stories. And really, I mean, that is at the core of what we do. That's where the passion comes from. You know, when I grew up surfing, doing some fishing boats, and I hate to admit this on the air, but I will, sailing. And I'm always been about the water, but high performance power boats, you know, they're the coolest segment, I think, but you know, it's not how I would have seen myself go. But a story, really, even if you're writing about coins, you're working for a coin collector magazine or whatever, a story's a story.
Right.
And it's how interested you are in telling that story is what comes through to the reader of that particular article. And if it's a really good story, like every 1,000th article, one of my family members will read and go, "Hey, that was pretty good." If I can do that, or if Jason can do that, you know, that's a victory. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, I do want to touch on one thing, a little off topic, but I don't want to forget about the fact, probably the thing I admire about you two the most, especially you, Matt, because I knew you a lot longer, like the way you guys write and how fast you can produce. It's unbelievable. You guys are unbelievably talented writers. And I think in this day and age, when we're talking about video, like I think that gets overlooked a little bit, but I just wanted to mention that. I've always admired that enough, man. If I could write as fast as you guys, that'd be pretty cool. I'd do a lot more, but, so anyway, I just want to throw that out there. Didn't want that left unsaid.
Well, Jason will back this up. I don't know. It's like one of I forget who said it. One writer once said, you know, writing is a muscle. If you use it, it gets stronger. If you don't use it, it atrophies. And you're either getting stronger or not. And so speed is one thing. Accuracy is super important. I mean, once you have those two things, then you can kind of work on making it entertaining and creative. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is getting out of the way of the story and just letting it tell itself. And it is your voice. But, you know, if the story's good, you really don't have to do all that much other than just tell it.
Yeah, well, you guys do a good job at it. And I want to talk about one other thing too. When you mentioned, Jason's mentioned two different times about finding mistakes.
Do I need to go fix something Matt wrote today?
No, hold on. Did you guys see the Kobe statue thing?
Kobe?
No, I'm unveiling it Staples or wherever they have a new statue.
They unveiled a new statue. There's like 3 horrendous typos in the engraved marble of this statue.
No way.
And like 2 days ago. So it was all,
it.
they spelled decision wrong, and anyhow, they spelled one of the players wrong. And but when they're doing this, you know, my wife and I are watching it because it's all over the news, and I'm like, every catalog I've ever done, every magazine I've been involved with, and you guys can appreciate this, right? You spend as much time as possible. You let as many people proof it. Like you put that thing through the ringer. And I know every time I produced the catalog, we'd have a contest to see who would be the first one to find the mistake that we all missed. So it's like, you can never, ever help it, right? There's always that one. So anyhow, it was just an interesting thing the other night when that came up. I'm like, I get it. I mean, I don't quite get that. It was pretty bad, but I can relate a little bit.
Decision? Yeah, I could get a name wrong for sure. You know?
Yeah, you'll have to Google. It's pretty. There's like 4 mistakes. It's pretty bad.
And by the way, Matt is impressively fast with his writing. I take a lot of pride in being able to do a succinct, pretty quick story, but I don't know. Matt can turn out a much longer feature a lot way faster too, which is it just comes out like almost that, you know, I have to figure out, like, work a little harder. Matt's got just like a writing like ability, the voice I should say, that's just very good. I know I have my own voice. You can see it, you can read it, stories and whatever, but I don't know. I've worked alongside him, and he's also got a focus that just like tunes everything else. Like we'll be in our hotel after the boat show, and Pete Bowden and I or a friend might be there or whatever. We're all chatting, and I'll get stuff done, but I can't just zero in where Matt doesn't hear anything. it's gone. I'm distracted by a funny joke or a wisecrack or something, but
yeah. Like 20 years ago when we worked together at Powerboat, everybody said the same thing about Matt. So that muscle, he's been working, it's really strong now,
Well, you work in a place like Powerboat where it's, open cubicles. If you can't shut stuff out, and I worked in a newsroom too, so I'm kind of learning to do that. But and Jason wouldn't tell you this because he's way too good a friend and way too good a partner. But I might be the worst copy editor on the planet, and I'm really shitty. Well, I'm really not that good. You can edit that part out, and some of it is a function of writing so much that you don't see your own mistakes, and that's a very common thing. That's why really excellent writers at places like wherever you want to name, there used to be banks of copy editors just going through it again and again and again and again. Jason's exceptional at that. He's a very, very, very good writer. And I tell him this all the time. And he's the only person I work with editorially I ever have. I just trust his decisions implicitly. We run stuff by each other, but he never has to run anything by me because his editorial judgment it's impeccable. And in my experience, it's never been wrong. And I'm pretty demanding. I think Jason once called me relentless. I don't think he meant it as a compliment.
It can be,
but yeah, we're a very, very fortunate team. We complement each other's skills. We laugh a lot. We bitch about the same stuff. It's all good.
Yep. No, it's obviously a great team. It's good. It's good.
That's been a good you guys got together. Advisor as a parent before me too, as he's done this with older kids, and I still have teen and tweens at home. So
yeah. Because Jason,
he understands. He understands too. Like, oh shit, Colby's homesick today, and she is. By the way, she's in her room. So.
Oh no.
Sorry, man.
Yeah. Oh, it's okay. Yeah, she knows I'm busy. So.
Yeah, because I mean, Jason, you're like a young pup when you guys started, right? Because he was like the young guy at Powerboat.
Oh yeah. I mean, I was only at Powerboat. I had done a magazine called LA Sports and Fitness for like 3 or 4 years out of college with a guy I met at foxsports.com, a job I had for 6 months right out of college. The guy who had a little bit of money and wanted to invest in he was from Chicago, and they had this cool magazine called Chicago Athlete or something like that. It was all marathons, triathlons, workout type stuff. And he started this one in LA, and it was fun. It wasn't my thing. I was not into that. I could care less about running 26 miles, but it's a cool topic. You meet some cool people. You're working around, high-end bikes, whatever else, and these things. But he started this magazine. I think it's still going. I haven't talked to him in a while, but it was last I checked. And he had partnered up with this running network. He had shoe ads, Gatorade ads, whatever. But for me, I was just kind of over the grind of a startup. And Powerboat was like, oh, that looks amazing. What? My grandparents lived in Lake Havasu when I was a kid. I grew up in Palm Springs, and we'd go over there, but they didn't have performance. They had a small little fishing boat, and they'd go down to the water, and my grandfather liked to golf and do that. That was it. So I'd see some boats like that, but I had no clue. The only exposure I had, I worked for a newspaper in Ventura when I was in college, and there was an offshore race that Popra put on, and I covered it, and I actually met Bob Teague when I was in college and did a story for the newspaper that I was an intern for. And then little I know, about 7 years later, I was running boats on the Parker River at 120 miles an hour with that guy.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, it was cool. It was quite a change. It was fun. The travel was awesome at Powerboat too. I didn't do a lot of it because I was, a little bit. I wasn't as senior as some of the other people, but got some cool perks out of it and met some great people. And Tom Newby, who we all knew pretty well, people like that that really kind of change your life, or they just have something that as a young person in my 20s. Guys like that can direct you a little bit, and even Bob giving me advice and, things like that it's cool. It was a really fun job at the time.
I mean, it was great. I only worked there for like barely 2 years, and that's a whole nother story. But
Yeah.
it was like I still tell you to this day, it was like the atmosphere was so chill. You know, Jerry he was good about making everybody feel good about the place and the atmosphere and all that, right? He was a good family guy. You know, wasn't perfect, small family thing, but no, and I agree. I'll never forget the first thing I went to. We tested deck boats, I believe, at Table Rock Lake, and it was the same. We were doing the awards the same time. So I literally was there for like a week and took off. And at the time, when I worked for Rex before that, and I would go to Miami Boat Show every year. That was it. But then, yeah, when you started working at Powerboat, the traveling, and then you get to know all the manufacturers. In fact, that first time when I went to Branson, I think we stayed up to like 3:00 in the morning, and it was just nothing but drinking with like Paul Singer and, you know, just the guys in the industry. And it was a really, really, really cool atmosphere. I never found that again until I got into publishing, and the hot rod was kind of the same, but no, I totally get it, man. It was a great atmosphere and a really cool place to be. So Matt, how did you get your start at Powerboat? Cause you were there a long time.
Well, I had worked at a newspaper for a while, and then worked for a group of trade magazines in the San Fernando Valley, covering landscape industry. So if anybody tells you they write about stuff that's boring, I don't have any patience for that. You know, I literally wrote about growing grass. You know, it was definitely not sexy. And I found I had gotten out of there, and I was looking for something else, and I had a part-time gig, and I just bought a house and had a kid on the way, and it was kind of scary. And I saw a classified ad in the LA Times back when they had classified advertisements in newspapers, and that's how you found jobs. And it was this skinny little ad that said managing editor wanted at boating publication in Ventura. So I drove up to Ventura, and I walked into the office, and I sat down and waiting for my interview, and I saw the magazine. And like I said earlier, I've been a magazine lover my whole life. And I think Jason is the same way, just super passionate about magazines. And the first thing I thought was, how much do they spend on this thing? And the second thing was, I have to work here. I have to work here. And I didn't get the job. It was a copy editing test, and the woman who interviewed before me did better than I did. And Eric Colby, God love him.
Surprise. That's who was there? Okay.
Eric Colby's editor at the time, and he said, you know, I really like you, but I'm not a very good copy editor myself, so I have to hire this woman. And within 2 days, she decided she was going to move to Seattle. So I got a phone call from Eric, and it was the best thing that ever happened in my career. You know, that working for Powerboat, it was exactly the way you describe it. It was a killer team. We went to amazing places. And the only thing I would say now, you know, in hindsight, is, God dang it, we were overstaffed. And we had a lot of people there. But, you know, it was a lot of work. It was putting together performance trials, you know, 3 weeks on the road. It was a lot of work. And it required a full sales team to bring in the money that was needed to do that, because even back then, I mean, it wasn't cheap to put helicopters in the air, to put Newbie in the air, to put, you know, house and feed a bunch of boat test guys, Bob T, me, John Tomlinson, Jason. It was crazy. It was a lot.
Well, and even then the email days weren't as accessible. So your sales guys were regional and going and doing visits and things like that. That was just the way that business had to be done too, you know. That's a lot different nowadays. I can jump on a call with somebody right just like this and see them face to face now, and, you know, get an answer to a question immediately. Whatever else, man. Yeah, it was definitely different. Oh, the magazine, like you said, Matt. I am a magazine guy. I don't know why I didn't realize this when I was a kid, that this was going to be my career. But I have Sports Illustrateds and Rolling Stone magazines that I collected when I was a kid. I have newspapers from different headlines. Like, I have the one like when Magic Johnson had HIV, you know, that I was like a little kid, but it was like such an important thing. I was like, I'm not throwing this thing away. But I went to college. I was going to be a sports med major and be a physical therapist, and that was what I wanted to do, work with athletes. And then I started working for the newspaper there and met some guys that were former Pepperdine graduates, alumni that worked at the LA Times. And I was like, oh, this sounds really cool. I could do that. I've grown up reading Jim Murray my whole life. That guy was
Oh, wow.
amazing. I couldn't wait to read his columns, and that was like, oh, wow, I could do that for a living. I was like, man, nowadays, I'm like, oh, I should have been a physical therapist. I'd be much, financially better off. But hey, that's
Yeah.
okay.
Oh, you've made
That always
make way
appealed
more
to me,
money
and I
than
didn't
you wish.
realize it. Yeah.
So Matt, so what year was it when you started there?
I started in 1993.
93. Okay.
I was at Powerboat as an employee until I think I want to say I had a brief hiccup in '99 when I went to what was then Peterson Publishing to work be the editor of a personal watercraft magazine, which was a total disaster.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So they gave me a little more money, my own title. It was really cool, and it just hadn't been really thought through all the way. And I wasn't really ready for the task, to be totally honest. I wasn't ready to be an editor in chief at that time. Anyway, went there, and I was the only person in the office working over the Christmas holidays, and I'm getting kind of depressed down at Peterson, and I finally just turned in my laptop and said, after 3 days, I'm done with this. But the great thing was
Wow.
it took me back at Powerboat magazine, but I lost all my vacation time and my Christmas bonus, but it was more than worth it. So then I stayed, I was an employee for a bit longer. And then in 2001, I went to work to help start boats.com, which was it was really interesting. It was terrifying. It was my first startup, very demanding work. And it didn't turn out the way I had hoped it would, or any of my colleagues hoped it would. None of us got rich and were able to retire on our first .com job. Go figure. But it did give me a window into the online world, which 9 years later, would become incredibly important. To be able to make the transition from print to digital for a 63-year-old as I am now. Back then, I mean, it was if you didn't have a foot in already, it was pretty tough to figure it out. And Jason would be the first one to tell you, I know just about enough online to be dangerous, but just to understand what was physically happening with the product, how we were moving it from this printed piece of paper to your laptop. It was a jump a lot of my peers weren't lucky enough to make, and I was just lucky.
Yeah. Because boats.com, that was basically .com era. I know that was one of the reasons I ended up at Powerboat, was because all you guys, and I can't remember who else, but it's like every editor in existence was now, probably an equity holder in boats.com or other online stuff, which was the way they did it then. So yeah, that was interesting.
Oh yeah. And then you started us, you're used to making $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year, and you're starting at 105, and you're getting all this valuable stuff. Didn't quite turn out that way, but you know what? I have no regrets at all. When boats.com said, hey, we don't have an office on Pier 38 next to the ballpark anymore, and you can work at your home, and I'd already moved my family to the Bay Area, like, okay, well, this is going to be a problem. I called, I think it would have been Brett Becker was the editor at Powerboat at the time, or someone back there. Hey, I'm available to freelance, and they took me back, and it worked out great. And so I freelanced for Powerboat a lot longer than I actually was an employee.
Gotcha. And you say, you mentioned, that you got your foot in the online stuff, but I know a little bit about it, but not a lot. But it seems like you guys do a really good job. I mean, your SEO seems really good. Your stuff comes up. You're on news alerts. So it seems like you guys are really on top of that. You've probably been self-taught or whatever, but it seems like you guys do a really good job with that.
Well, Jason pays a lot of attention, and we have a really good webmaster. He was with me, Dave McCreary. He was with us at boats.com. He's older than I am. He's been on the interweb since before Al Gore invented it. And he is super smart.
Yeah.
He did our
like
powerboat
everybody
website too. So I've known him for a long time, not as long as Matt. He could be a little grumpy sometimes, but he'll take care of it when we need it. So it's a fun
I know.
relationship.
I think I remember him. I think when I was kind of out the door, we were kind of trying to bring him in because I remember talking to him and working with him, and he actually did a couple websites for me for friends and family and stuff. So that's funny. I forgot about that guy.
Well, I hope he listens to this podcast because at some point I'm gonna say he's like 4 feet tall. He's shaped like a troll, and he looks like a troll. Lives under a bridge, and he works the oddest hours. So his hours start like 8 o'clock at night, and he shuts down around what, Jay? 4 in the morning.
Yeah, I think it's his habits have changed a little bit since he's gotten older. Yeah.
We are screwed.
I remember him being just a machine though, because I think he did a website for my brother, and like it literally was like, okay, we're going, go. You better get me stuff, and like it seemed like a week, and he had a website of it. It was crazy.
He's unreal. He is really good at what he does.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
We've been fortunate with a lot of people we've worked with or have been part of our team, along the way. Because it's me and Matt that you see, but I mean we have a great group of photographers. And, Pete Bowden, our main guy, Jeff Helmkamp, and Tom Lee, who we work with, and there's a bunch of them. And then we've had salespeople that have helped us along the way. Things here and there, test drivers that we work with, or we rely on, and obviously the sources. And then I was going to comment on it before, but you talk about Eric Colby, who hired Matt back then. Eric is basically our, what would you call him, offshore racing correspondent, editor. He covers racing for us and has for the last 2-3 years now. So it's kind of a cool full circle relationship.
Yeah, gosh, Eric's been around for a long time.
Yeah, and he does a sensational job. I mean, he's I thought I was doing a reasonably good job. I read his stuff and I don't even want to look at my old stories.
Really?
He's so thorough, and but he is not just a journalist and a really good one. He's a super fan. He went and raced offshore for a while. You probably remember that at Powerboat.
Oh, did he? No, I don't remember that.
No, it's the real thing, and he's less grumpy than he used to be. But he's still grumpy.
We got kind of you can tell our age because there's this kind of grumpy theme running through this.
We're all just grumpy in general. Well, I am. Jason's son. He's young. Jason's young. He's not allowed to be grumpy yet.
Ask my kids, Matt. Ask my kids. Yeah. They'll tell you, I'm grumpy.
I've heard you.
and there's one guy, Jeff and I were talking the other day too, that I guess Ricky's helping you again too, as a graphic artist. So all my years, I think he's the best graphic guy. He used to lay out Powerboat when we were there, and I guess he started doing year in review again this year, but amazing artist too.
Well, he designed the Speed on the Water logo. Right, Matt?
Oh yeah. Okay.
He did. Yep. Yeah. He did.
Yeah, it was just a great logo. Of course, Rick did it. Sounds right. I don't know if you guys know Eric Briner. He's a photographer, does some stuff. But I had him on one of my first guys, and he actually brought up the fact that Tom Newby was like his idol, and that was kind of the guy that when he saw this guy Tom Newby making a living doing boating photography, like that was something that motivated him. And I knew Tom a little bit, but not like you guys do. So I don't know if you want to talk about him a little bit. I mean, he was just a great dude and obviously a great photographer.
Oh, I'll tell one quick story because Matt knows him way better. But I went to see Afro Man with Tom Newby in Augusta, Georgia. We were covering a champ boat tunnel race. The first time I met Sean Torrente, who now is good friend of mine. Obviously, he's on Speed on the Water stuff all the time. Covered him a long time, obviously, since then. But Tom was like, dude, Afro Man's in town. We're going to that. And I was like, what? Do we have to be like some party or something? He's like, nope. We're going to Afro Man. We're getting our Colt 45s. It was like on a mission. I was like, I probably would have never done that without Tom. And we had other, fun adventures, University of Tennessee football games, some other stuff. But, I mean, all I know is he was really, really good at his job. When it came time to take photography seriously, he did. And he could direct people in a boat from a helicopter. He could direct all of us on the dock for the detail pictures. I've never worked with anybody like that. even setting up studio
Yeah.
photo shoots for like our accessory products, he'd be like, no, we got to set up here. Cause I'd take like 6 things down to his place in Manhattan Beach, or I think that's where he was, Hermosa or whatever. And we'd set him up in his house. He'd be like directing me there. Everything was like Tom's direction. He had a focus, he had vision. So, but Matt knew him way better than me.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's definitely what I remember the few times I went on boat tests. That like he would just like he was a ringleader, man, and it was what was the big scrim he would put out over the boats, and
that was fun. Yeah, Tom was a lead follower, get out of the way guy, but he really preferred to lead, because if you didn't do it the way he was going to do it anyway, we called it getting newbie. He just starts second guessing you, and you're like, by the time you were done, you're like, how could I have possibly been this stupid, you know? But one of the things that Jason alluded to, like, and that's a really great Tom newbie story, because if you were ever on the road with him, and I was on the road with him a lot during the year, so was Eric Colby, and Tom's rule was, if we have a free day, we're not sitting in our hotel rooms sleeping. We're going to go do something like that we can't do here. You know, that we can't do at home. So Jason and Tom are in Alabama or Georgia, Georgia, wherever they're at Afro Man. Tom and I went king fishing in Destin, Florida, one year, and we came back with a lot of kingfish that we gave to the deckhands, because we were there to test boats the following day, and but we had some leftover bait, and that's when the true beginning of the Powerboat magazine Practical Jokes started, because we had a salesperson working for us by the name of Jack Sarampa, and it was always, you know, sort of a battle between edit and editorial, advertising and editorial. And so Tom and I decided Jack was going to stay an extra day. We were leaving the next day to drive over to Orlando, and Jack was going to stay an extra day and play golf with one of our advertisers. And he was going to bring the van over, which had all the testing equipment and stuff in that, you know. So we got the keys to the van, and we took dead bait, and we put it all over the van. But see, and we hit it, and it was going to sit in the sun, and it was about 100 degrees every day, so it was going to get pretty funky. And so this is the genius of Tom Newby. Like he said, okay, hide some stuff in really obvious places, so he just finds it. Because I'm going to hide some stuff in places he'll never look. And then 3 hours down the road, it's going to start stinking again. And that just started a long-standing war of practical jokes at Powerboat magazine. I'll tell you one really quick Tom Newby story, the one I'll never forget. We were in Peru covering a record run that Bob Teague did with a guy named Lizardo Benitez, and he did it in I think a 43-foot V bottom. And Peruvian Navy flew air support for us down there. So Tom shot from the helicopter. It was an Augusta Bell, giant, like, you know, there was enough room to play basketball in there. It was a big helicopter. And the helicopter, they finished the run. It was Pucosana to Ancon and back. And there was a big party at the gentleman's house who was driving the boat and paid Bob to come down. And the helicopter pilot did not want to get his helicopter dirty. So he was joking the whole time that he was going to lower us down on a cable. And sure enough, when it came time to put us into ground, he clipped me on, and I was kind of a former skydiver, so I thought it was just the coolest thing in the world. And I remember looking back up at Tom as I was lowering down, and his face was just sheet white. He did not want to do it at all, especially with his camera. He's like, what if I brought my camera, man? I don't know about this, man. So finally, and I didn't. I mean, I think I might have had a cell phone back then, but it didn't have a camera on it. It wasn't quite that fancy. So they lowered Tom down, and I remember looking up at this big guy, like dangling from a wire coming out of a helicopter with all of his camera gear on. And it was all so heavy that when he got to the breakwater they were lowering us onto, he just sort of sat down and collapsed. And it was the best moment, looking at him on the ground like just a terrified little kid, starting to laugh. The epilogue to that story is at the party we all got food poisoning and we were sick all the way home on the flight back to Atlanta.
Oh man, to have a camera though, then that's so too bad.
We
Too
had cameras
bad.
back then like we do now.
Yeah.
Yeah, imagine if you could have documented. I mean, now with the video capability of a trip like that, Matt, like how cool.
Yeah, it was incredible.
Yeah, that trip sounded unbelievable. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's an adventure for sure.
Yeah, not story wise, but did you have any like adventures like this, exotic races, runs like that? I mean, anything that kind of you remember sticks out?
I think Jason went to Tunisia.
I went to Tunisia to cover a powerboat P1 race, and I knew nobody. I went by myself.
Wow.
But once I got there, Joe Scrow was there, and Mike Fiore, Nigel Hook, a few people I kind of knew of, but I didn't know them. So that was kind of at least a group I could, mingle with and hang out with. But it was culture shock for a few days, but it was really fun. The racing was cool. And the P1 organization at the time, when they had the V-bottom Evolution, and I don't remember the other class, there was two of them, Super Sport Evolution, something like that. It was very professional, very well done. I know I had not gone to an offshore race or another race in the U.S. that had nearly the same, VIP treatment and, caliber of even everything that was set up for the fans and things like that. It was well done. Mm-hmm. Matt went to one in Malta. There was a P1 race too, right, Matt?
Yeah, I did.
You go to that one?
I went to Malta with Tom and Vicky Newton. That was a really amazing trip. Say I hadn't been to Malta. Most people haven't been to Malta, but it was amazing. It's a beautiful little country. It's sort of between Sicily and North Africa, and it's got its own culture. It's a amazing place, and the racing was pretty amazing as well. Very, Formula One, Drive to Survive, VIP kind of high hospitality level. That was done by that series was started by Asif Raghunwala out of London, and his son Azam Raghunwala is the head of Powerboat P1 now, and they're currently the guys behind the Class 1 World Championship Series, because that's kind of what the offshore racing that they knew. There was an adventure, but you know what, with Tom, going anywhere was an adventure. I went to Fort Wayne, Indiana with him, and there's all kinds of stories I really can't tell about that.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I mean, these international trips are cool, but the places that I've seen within this country that you can go boating wise, I without this profession, I would have never known that the Thousand Islands existed, or Boyne City and Lake Charlevoix and Round Lake and all these places, or Tickfaw, the swamps of Louisiana. Who would have thought that there's all these bars and stuff, and there's multiple bars. You can't get there by a car, but you can go by boat. It's just eye-opening, all these different places. And just Florida, the contrast of the Florida Keys up to, Destin or over across the way. It's just Jacksonville. There's all the St. Johns River, so different, and all right here in the same country.
Yeah, interesting. And when I was rolling through your book last night too, I mean, I know there's a lot of poker runs, obviously, but as I was going through the book page by page, I'm like, wow. I mean, there was a bunch of poker runs I never even heard of. I'm like, man, this is pretty insane.
Most of them are raising money for a good cause. Yeah. So we're trying to highlight that as much as we can too. The generosity that our community has. So.
Well, good segue, because that's another thing you guys just recently did. You two guys had a big hand in raising a lot of money for, it was the charity Samuel's House, which is a shelter for children and women at Key West. And once you talk about that, it was pretty impressive.
Wow. Well, Jason and I started that party at a BurgerFi just to, what was it, 10 years ago?
Yeah, this is our 10th event this year. Yep.
Yeah.
In November it was 10th.
Speed on the Water Bash, you call it, or Speed on the Water?
Yeah,
Bash?
We just did it to buy some burgers and some beers for some advertisers and some friends of ours. That's how it started. Yeah. And then it grew from there. We got a charity involved. When did we get the charity involved, Matt? 5-6 years ago? Probably 6.
Yeah. The first, I
Just
think,
because we started getting too many people there, it was like, dude, we should do something good for got all these people here. We're not just trying to keep this bar in business.
Which we did. Man, I think we raised $3,500 our first year. It wasn't a lot of money, but it was something, and it was that was a function of Yvonne Alleman and Greg Harris, especially Yvonne. She wanted to do something with a local. She's a dog breeder, so she was very into animal rights issues. So she wanted to get the SPCA and Key West involved, but they were too busy apparently, and she found this other charity that really needed a lot of help. But the Key West Bash, it's a lot of work. Every time we get done with it, we're like, I don't want to do this again. But it's hard to walk away from something that actually does good and you feel really, really good about. Jason, he wasn't in Key West this year, but he worked so hard behind the scenes, making sure that everything was together.
We had a little bit of added pressure this year. We had a performance boater from Southern California, actually. Austin Carver and his family have a foundation looking to donate money, and they challenged us. If we could raise $100,000 this year, they'd match it, which was just what we did the year before, 80,000 the year before.
Mm-hmm.
And so it put some pressure on us. It also put the pressure on some of the audience that was there to try to get to that point, and we did. And $200,000 for this charity.
That's crazy.
5 years ago, we cut them a check for like $10,000. It's a difference maker. It's cool, and it makes you feel good, even though, like Matt said, we're like, oh, this party. But it's good for the heart. It's good for our community to come in there, or for Key West to see that these boaters are coming in here and making a difference too. Not just Speed on the Water; it's our whole community.
Well, I mean, there's a guy like, and I don't want to single anyone out, but I'm going to. There's a guy named Chuck Stark who lives in South Carolina. Not only did he donate a signed guitar, I forget who it was signed by. He either bought that guitar himself because he didn't like the way the bid was going, or I think he may have bought somebody else's guitar. So like, we've got people donating these like amazing items. DCB, custom fabricating out of carbon fiber, a card table. Stephen Miles.
I think I saw that. Yeah.
Painting shot skis. One of his shot skis at the Catawba Cannonball run fetched $27,000.
Nice.
We haven't done that quite, but we've done really well with that stuff. And these are just people going, hey, I want to be involved in this. I want to have my name on it. The bigger picture is, this performance boating community. I can't speak to other segments because I don't cover other segments, but I would be highly surprised if there is a more generous segment of boaters in the powerboating world, period. I'd be shocked, to be honest with you, because they are really over the top generous. And It's amazing. It's humbling, and it makes doing what we do worth it, right, Jay?
Yeah, that's a lot of the stories we read about. They're positive. Lake Ozark Shootout raising $675,000. It's good content. It's positive content. So
putting your money where your
mouth is. Pretty darn amazing.
Right? I mean, well, that's awesome, and good job on the charity stuff. That's really cool. I want to say that I'm glad Jason did come along, Matt, because our generation, we would keep just supporting the bar forever. So glad we got the Gen Xer to come in.
What's really
sometimes Matt does call me the Red Cross, right? They give away too much.
No, you can never give away too much.
You guys, literally, that party in Key West ends. Jason will tell you who the first person back to his room is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I have definitely gotten a little bit older than I used to be.
Yeah.
And the other thing too, and I don't want to keep going, it's the Key West used to be like I said it was for us. We go down there and have to turn in a story 6 weeks later. Man, you know that's not how it works anymore. We're doing every day of races, and between the days we're doing stuff too, and we are running kind of flat out to get it all done. So can't do that with a little bit of a headache, if you will.
Yeah, gotcha. Well, guys, doing a great job. I love your stuff. Hopefully more people, maybe the 1 or 2 people in the world that don't know about you can know about you now, because that didn't before. So, but thanks for coming on. You guys, I respect the hell out of you guys, and I love what you're doing, and I always keep my eyes on it, and maybe we do this again sometime. So thanks for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Keep up the good work. I enjoy these. I especially enjoy that you're doing these with people all over different parts of the boating industry, not just
cool. Well, thank you.
So
yeah, thank you. So, all right, guys,
thanks,
have a good
Jeff.
rest of your day. Take
Bye,
care. See ya.
Thank you for listening to Powerboat Talk. If you like what you've heard, please head over to Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star review. For more Powerboat Talk, follow us on Facebook or Instagram, or visit our website at powerboattalk.com.